Hey guys, what's going on? Just wanted to set a live so we can hang out. If anybody wants to hop in, I posted the StreamYard link, so I want to get people's input on what I'm going over today. But we're going to cover a little bit of the media's reaction to Nick Shirley's video. You had Nick Shirley's video. You had all of your favorite creators create their reaction to it. And now we get to see the professional disinformation machine hard at work trying to discredit anything and everything they can, all in an attempt to kind of move the eyes away from the obvious fraud that's going on and, push it more towards this is just racism, this is just Islamophobia, simply because the perpetrators of this fraud or alleged fraud are of a specific race. So I'm going to get into some of the initial backlash that I've been seeing, some of the videos that I've seen put out by news organizations, and then we're going to start talking about how it could possibly be that all of these are on the up and up. Mind you, no one has seen kids going in and out of these daycare centers. The individual that was in Nick Shirley's video put out that he was watching these areas for a very, very long time and has done the research clearly, because where would they take this if they hadn't done the research? And he himself was alerted to this fraud by the fact that he didn't see any services rendered. But I'll leave that for you to interpret on your own. So let's get into it.
Developments in Minnesota's fraud crisis, specifically related to childcare. Here's the latest.
We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it's freezing childcare funds for Minnesota after a YouTuber claimed to uncover fraudulent centers in a viral video.
And that's a reasonable thing to do, right? You have allegations of fraud, and I think he ended the video at $111 million. Some might ask, oh, why are you pointing this out? People have been talking about this. Well, no one created a viral video that got millions of views and made its way up, to the powers that be. All fraud takes is somebody uncovering it, and that's when your clock starts ticking. Your statute of limitations start running out. The fraud has to be discovered, right? So your statute of limitations don't run out, and you have a certain amount of time to go after it. Otherwise, you lose the right to go after it. So the reason all the people on the left are they're asking, oh, why is this such a big deal? Why are you honing in on it? Well, because that's what's in the news right now, and whether you disagree with the message behind it, you can't argue with it. All you can do is deflect and push it away. Maybe you should reevaluate that.
The state gets about $185 million in federal funds each year. The HHS deputy secretary says he's demanded Minnesota Governor Tim Walz audit those centers featured in the video. The governor,
he's not going to. I'm making a prediction now that while he is probably involved in this and probably gets a good amount of money from this whole scheme, nothing will obviously lead back directly to him. It's going to be through back channels. He's going to be, it's one of the ways, congressmen get richer and richer, or politicians get richer and richer. Nothing ties directly to them unless you can do the investigation, as Nick Shirley's doing in this case, and start pointing it out. And, we hear people on the left all the time talk about, oh, there's no evidence of that, no evidence of that, no evidence of that. It sounds vaguely familiar to, if you don't test for a virus, you don't have the virus, right? Just because someone hasn't noticed it doesn't mean it's not going on. And people on the right have been mocked and ridiculed over and over and over again. Anytime anything is brought up, the liberal, the mainstream media kicks it into high drive and tries to convince its viewers that there's nothing to see here. And I find that hilarious. So now we're pointing it out. So let's see what their reaction is.
Responded on X, saying this is Trump's long game. We've spent years
Hmm.
cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. He's politicizing the issue to defund programs that help Minnesotans.
And there we go. There's the first piece of it. Don't you care about the children? Yeah, we do care about the children. That's why we want to expose people that aren't taking care of kids but are getting money earmarked to take care of kids. That's the ultimate gesture of we care about kids. And Nick Shirley cares about kids. And it's so blatantly obvious what his intentions are in saying this. He wants to deflect. He does not want this to become the story it's become. He doesn't get a say in it, but it is what it is.
Some of the featured child care centers are firing back. This one says footage from their security camera proves kids were present when the YouTuber stopped by. Our Connor White went there to take a closer look. All new at 10.
You want to make ready for kindergarten.
This is ABC Learning Center in Minneapolis.
They have to learn ABC and numbers.
Director
So this is the guy, this is the director, he just said, can't even speak proper English, but he's going to be teaching your kids ABCs, as he wants to call it.
Ahmed Hassan gave WCCO a tour after finding his daycare in the national spotlight.
All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center.
In a now viral video, right-wing YouTuber Nick Shirley claims nearly a dozen
Right-wing YouTuber. So you can't just say political commentator. You can't say, streamer, political streamer. You have to frame it so that your audience that already has a preconceived notion that everybody on the right is evil and just wants to take away childcare, you just want to hammer that point in, right? Continue.
Daycare centers in Minnesota are taking public funds but not providing a service. He says ABC Learning Center is one of them, knocking on the door in mid-December.
I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Hassan says his employee didn't respond because Shirley was in a group of about 8 people, and his staff were concerned
That's relevant because they're going to show you the security footage here in a minute.
about recent ICE activity. Is this daycare committing fraud?
No, we're not committing fraud.
Hassan showed us security footage from the same day Shirley was here. According to the timestamps in the videos, this woman takes a young child into the center at around 9 a.m. that day, about 3 hours before Shirley arrives at the door closer to the street. Within the hour after Shirley leaves, a woman arrives at the other door with a stroller. A larger family heads inside a few hours later. Tuesday afternoon, WCCO found at least a dozen children at ABC Learning Center.
Mind you, they have certifications for 40, but there's a dozen there.
Which is licensed with the state. Records show Minnesota officials last visited the daycare in November, noting some corrected and ongoing violations related to day-to-day operations, but no record of fraud.
What did I do? I'm just a typical human being who wants to live and do the right thing. I have kids.
I just want to live and do the right thing. That's how they're going to frame it. Watch. It's going to be an attack on children, and we don't know anything, and we're just supposed to ignore the fraud that's going on in between our eyes.
Stupid.
Umi Hassan, the daycare's current owner, believes these latest fraud accusations are political. Both she and Hassan are Somali Americans.
We pay our taxes. We do whatever we can to be a law-abiding citizen. At the same time, when one Somali does something wrong, we all get collective punishment.
With Shirley's video now approaching 2.3 million views on YouTube alone, they say they are getting nonstop phone calls harassing them.
I was looking for a place for my granddaughter.
With many of those calls attached to out-of-state phone numbers.
They normally say, knock, knock, we're gonna come. You're gonna arrest, something like that.
Hassan says they turned over attendance records to comply with the Department of Homeland Security request. They're now waiting to hear back. CBS News is reviewing records related to the same daycares. All but 2 have active licenses. And Aaron, while the active places have violations related to safety or staff training, there's no recorded evidence of fraud specifically.
Okay, interesting. Connor, thank you so much. Well,
Interesting. So that's kind of funny that they have all these violations, but they're on the up and up, right, guys? Like they do no wrong. They're law-abiding citizens. They don't violate anything.
another facility highlighted in the YouTube video was Quality Learning Center. The people operating it would not speak with us, but we did talk to a mother.
You mean Quality Leering?
I take my kids here, 2 o'clock to 10. Yeah, there's a lot of kids inside.
We spoke with another woman who says she owns the building that houses the daycare. She says they've been operating there since 2017. New tonight, this child.
So they've been operating since 2017, and I believe in that specific daycare center, the Quality Leering Center, the one that's gotten so much hype, they operate from 2 to 10, which is a reasonable operating time. It'd be for second shift parents. But if you remember in the video, there were no kids at the daycare center in the afternoon when Nick Shirley went there. So what, did they just have the day off on a random day in December? Let's move along.
And Homeland Security is conducting what it calls a massive investigation into alleged fraud in Minnesota's Somali community. A viral video claims to expose misuse of taxpayer money that was supposed to be spent on social services. Now, federal agents say they're going door to door to investigate, as the state's Democratic governor is pushing back on allegations that he's ignored the issue. Minneapolis Star-Tribune senior investigative reporter Jeff Meitrot is here for more on that. Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. You know, our ABC affiliate KSTP reported on license violations at some of these sites back in January. They revealed 62 investigations involving federally funded Minnesota child care centers. And I know that you've investigated
62 investigations. And when the feds investigate you, it's not because you served the wrong snacks at snack time. It's because you're doing something that's federally illegal, i.e. you're taking taxpayer funds and not providing the services, maybe?
this in depth too. So what are the facts at this point and what's new now?
Well, it's been 10 years of fraud here in Minnesota. This daycare program that was the target of this most recent video was the first state overseen program that led to fraud charges back in 2014 through 2017. They built 10 different cases back then. Unfortunately, most of those people got a slap on the wrist, which really may have only emboldened the fraudsters.
Which is pretty common for white collar crime. Like fraud is. Most white collar crime is actually, in my opinion, not punished as hard as it should be. You tend to think that white collar crime is not a victimless thing, but you're not, harming anybody. So that's consistent with how the United States has prosecuted white collar crime before.
And since then, there have been frauds involving a state-operated meals program that's supposed to feed hungry, poor children, and now housing programs, autism programs. It's really a spiraling crisis here.
It's a really good grift. You think about all of these different programs. The average person is not auditing these. The public is not, super up to it. If you're not using a service, you're not going to notice that a service is being engaged in fraud. So where if you're getting money for a soup kitchen and not running a soup kitchen, it's going to be a lot less obvious, because if you just don't ever see anything working, you're never going to go there, right?
And President Trump brought this up a few weeks ago when talking about ICE targeting Somali immigrants in Minneapolis. He also said, quote, their country stinks and we don't want them in our country. How big of a problem is fraud in the Somali community there, and how are Somali Americans there responding?
Minnesota is home to the largest Somali population in the United States. There's over 100,000 Somalis here. And when you go into this community, what you realize is that the vast majority of them obviously are appalled at what's happening and wish that the spotlight was not on their community.
And that's completely reasonable. 100,000 strong in a community. Obviously, they're not all fraudsters, and no one should get the idea that this issue is uniquely attached to Somalians, right? I don't think anybody is saying that. The only people that are saying that, are Democrats. They're Democrats trying to deflect from the situation by calling people that are calling it out racist. I talk a lot on Set's channel about fraud, right? I dislike it. I think that every aspect of fraud, whether it be white collar crime or government contract manipulation or just waste and incompetence in the federal government, should be gotten rid of. I don't like subsidies. I don't like our tax dollars going to anything that doesn't benefit us. And if you're wasteful with your money, it doesn't benefit the American people. In fact, it actually makes inflation go up, because when you have a big purchaser of goods, the price of goods goes up.
At the same time, most of the fraudsters who have been caught so far are of East African or Somali descent. And so, they're immigrants that are coming here. They don't know our system too well. And many of them, they come from a culture where fraud is very common. And unfortunately, they have encountered state government here where the guardrails have really not been strong enough.
Republicans have been criticizing the Democratic Governor Tim Walz over this, saying he basically ignored this. His office insists he's been working for years to crack down on fraud. So what have you learned about how state...
A good way to crack down on fraud? Don't be a target. Don't have these open border policies where you try to, at the risk of the populace, include every single person to a detriment of yourself. This weaponized empathy. That's how you combat fraud. What Nick Shirley is doing, bringing light to the fraud and talking about it. If Tim Walz was trying to get rid of fraud, he would talk about the fraud and expose the fraud and talk to the media about the fraud. But no, he's too worried about his radical left ideology that if he points out fraud, people are going to dig deeper into it and be like, oh, it's Somali fraud. And he doesn't want that perception, because why is the Somali community in Minnesota? Because of Democratic policies. Why is it been allowed to get to this point? Because of Democratic policies. You can look at any state, and where they have waste, fraud, and abuse, it's usually run by a Democrat. And it's sad. And it's not unique to Tim Walz. Tim Walz just happens to be the one under the microscope at this time. But it's been going on for years. There's no way we can be running one of the greatest capitalistic countries in the world, making our GDPs like $26 trillion, and no one notices. No one seems to think that there's waste. We have $38 trillion in debt, and you think all of that's on the up and up. No one abused any system ever. Come on now.
Officials have tried to address this, and what more needs to be done?
Well, I think one of the most frustrating things for a lot of folks here in Minnesota, which, has always been described as a state that works, right? This is a place known for good government. It's not Louisiana. It's not Illinois, two places I worked before, where you might expect these kinds of public corruption things to be happening. This is Minnesota, where these things aren't supposed to happen, which sort of lays into the extra
until someone like Tim Walz gets in power. And remember, guys, this is the guy that ran for vice presidency of the U.S. He would have brought this to a community near you. Good thing we didn't vote for him.
Sort of shockingness of this whole situation. However, when you dig into really what happened here, and we have done several investigations, it's clear that the state officials ignored whistleblowers, very credible whistleblowers, who came forward with allegations of misconduct before any of the money in what we call the Feeding Our Future scandal was paid out. And the state basically told those whistleblowers, thanks, but no thanks. They sent them to other places. And for, I think, a couple of years, there was really a lot of concern by members of the public, but it seemed like the state government wasn't showing the same sort of sense of urgency that it is today. Now here we are going into an election year, and suddenly fraud is all anybody's talking about, both Democrats and Republicans. And I think the administration is now making some really good efforts to try to get a handle on this problem, change some of the way these things work. But for a lot of folks, it's too little, too late.
That's what I was literally just about to say that myself. It's too little, too late. The money's already gone. $111 million is gone, and it's not just that; it's billions of dollars over the past 10 years. And this is not a indictment of any one person, but a system of corruption and handouts. If we didn't run a government, if we had smaller government where every single pet project got funded no matter what, if we didn't have that kind of a government, this would be a lot harder to commit. You wouldn't be able to commit fraud on this scale. But because we're in this day and age where everybody has this mentality that the government can fix every problem and we should centralize every single thing and, take away parents' rights, take away the rights of school districts, take away the rights of the individual for the collective, which is a pillar of socialism and communism. If we didn't have that, things like this wouldn't be able to happen. And this is the vehicle. It's not done in bad faith, I wouldn't say, but it is being used as the vehicle to perpetuate this kind of shit. And because it exists, it's going to be exploited by anybody.
So how big of a political issue is this for Walz and Minnesota Democrats?
It's a huge issue. I've talked to many Democrats who have supported Walz in both of his previous runs, love the fact that he was running for president, and are really having trouble thinking about supporting him for a third time. There's a lot of comparisons to Joe Biden about, is he going to harm the party by continuing to run? So I think those are some real live sort of concerns for this administration. Walz is doing what he can to, I think, repair some of the damage. What they did yesterday by responding so quickly to this video, that really impressed a lot of people. I mean, there are some great sort of credibility issues with this video, but at the same time, the government was like, you know what? Despite our concerns about sort of the tactics that were used in this video, it does raise questions, legitimate questions about these sites, and bang, they were out there knocking on doors and doing site inspections. As soon as the thing started yesterday, not waiting for months to see what the feds might do. They got on top of it right away.
Department of Homeland Security keeping up appearances in the Twin Cities. The department is saying investigators are going door to door at suspected fraud sites. They posted this video to social media this morning saying agents are conducting a massive operation to, quote, identify, arrest, and remove criminals who are defrauding the American people.
And several daycare centers in Minnesota are now at the center of fraud allegations and investigations as well. And in the last hour, the United States Health and Human Services Department Deputy Secretary announcing the governor has frozen all child care payments to the state of Minnesota, which equals $185 million a year.
One daycare center getting national attention is Quality Learning Center in Minneapolis. Our So Young Kim is live there for us this evening. So Young, what's the latest there?
Why don't you call it what they called it? Quality Learning Center.
Hey, Simone, Kelsey. Yeah, we're here on Nicollet Avenue in front of Quality Learning Center. Like you said, it's probably one of the most highlighted businesses in that video that has gone viral. And we do want to show you there's been a lot of conversation about the sign of this business. You might remember there was a misspelling in the word learning. It was missing the N, and that has since been updated. As you can see, they got a new sign that says Quality Learning Center. And yesterday, the commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families, Tiki Brown, responded to the video saying there were children present at the sites when they were visited. And state officials say this center reported they would be closing last week, but officials learned late yesterday that they have decided to open, and we can confirm they are open. We've seen kids and parents going in and out.
Wait. I didn't know that piece of information. So they announced last week that they were going to be closing after taking taxpayer money, after taking those grants, and no one has a problem with that. They took the money for the service, and now we're not going to get the service. But that's not fraud at all, right?
Out all day. People involved and related to the business didn't want to speak on camera today with us, but we did speak with a parent who says she's been sending her kids this year to this center and hasn't really noticed anything unusual. We also heard from the business owner of a neighboring business who owns the building. She also says she hasn't noticed anything unusual. The state does have 55 open investigations into child care assistance programs in the state. And coming up, we'll also hear from another daycare center, ABC Learning in Minneapolis, that was also in the video, and we'll hear from the owners of that business.
So, in other words, guys, there's nothing to see here. You shouldn't question anything that you see. If you do that, you're racist. It's hard to wrap my head around, because every time I think of the amount of money that's gone into this, it just makes me wonder, what could this have gone to, right? Instead of propping up fraudsters, how many roads could have been built? How many streets could have been cleaned up? How many police officers could have been hired? How many X, Y, and Z could have happened, right? How many things that government is actually responsible for doing could have been done instead of people that abuse it and wear $2,000 sunglasses to interviews. Like, I'd much rather it go to that than that. Like, there's no reason for this to be allowed, and for it to be kind of reactionary. Like, Tim Walz didn't say anything until he was caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He didn't say anything about fraud. You want to keep up appearances, right? You want to keep up the look that these democratic radical left ideas work, and when it's pointed out that they're abused or that they don't work, then you comment on it. You want to talk about the rich paying their fair share. You want to talk about affordable housing. You want to talk about, healthcare and all of these issues. And when left up to your devices, you use other people's money to take advantage of them and defraud them, meanwhile talking about championing all of these things. So that's all I have for that right now. You can beat this to death 8 different ways. There's no excuse for it. There's no deflecting. There's no trying to turn it around as something. This is what it is, and what it is bad, and it needs to be stopped. And for everybody that wants to cover for criminals, I think you should take a long, hard look at yourself and say, is this really the fight that I want to have? I want to fight for people that don't share my ideals. They're criminals that look at me and laugh as I say, "Oh, I'm for this and I'm for this." Yeah, you know what they're thinking? Yep, keep signing those bills. Keep making the government bigger because I get to take a bigger cut out of it. That's what they're thinking. You're being taken advantage of, and it appalls me. Billions of dollars in a state budget is not a small issue. I think Minnesota's budget is like $60-something billion, and it should be less, right? It shouldn't be that big. It should not cost billions of dollars to do all of these things, and it doesn't cost that. What it costs billions of dollars to do is to create organizations and agencies that are easily defrauded, where the money can be funneled overseas, can be funneled to your political campaigns and your pursuits of power. And there's eventually enough has to be enough, if you know what I mean. But on that note, I want you guys to have a good night. Later.